My Lords, it's a pleasure to follow the Noble Baroness Lady Altman, and I share her concerns about the resourcing with the Health and Safety Executive, something that there's, I think, been considerable public concern about in the context of COVID-19 and the many other threats we see, particularly to workplace safety, but also public safety. I feel like I should warn the Noble Lady Baroness McIntosh of Pickering, who's following me in this debate as she was in the previous statutory instrument, when she gave a particularly excellent contribution, that I'm planning to be very brief. I really have two brief sets of questions. The first ones relate to the explanatory memorandum to the actual statutory instrument that this statutory instrument amends. And in that explanatory memorandum, it says each administration of Great Britain will continue to be able to make its own decisions about the release of genetically modified organisms in its territory. The existing processes for each administration reaching its own decisions at the national level will continue as now. Now, I'm aware that in the other chamber as we speak, the internal market bill is still a subject for debate and indeed is still a subject of negotiations, we might say. But I wonder if the Noble Lady, the Minister, might be able to tell me how the rights to control release of genetically modified organisms and sale of products containing genetically modified organisms will relate to the single market bill and the rules being made around that. And also, of course, the inevitable complication of how this will affect products going between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. I would also make the point that that explanatory memorandum talks about the release of genetically modified organisms. Of course, no one can control the spread of genetically modified organisms or the genes that they contain. It is worth highlighting that point that given we share extensive borders, no administration on these islands can have control over the spread of those genes or potentially those organisms. My second point briefly addresses the biocidal products side of this statutory instrument. And I note particularly research out last month published in the peer-reviewed Science of the Total Environment journal, and it refers particularly to the insecticides part of this statutory instrument. And this research showed that two products widely used in flea treatments for domestic animals, particularly dogs and cats, fipronil and imidacloprid, best effort, were showing up in very high levels in our rivers. Fipronil showed up in 99% of samples in 20 rivers, and in one case it's what's measured at 38 times the safe level. So I would ask the Noble Lady the Minister if the government is looking as a matter of urgency at this issue and indeed many other broader issues, and particularly one issue that's increasingly being thrown up by the science, which is what's known as the cocktail effect, the impact of the mixing of different chemicals and indeed interactions between antimicrobial resistance and different chemicals, and the potential impact that has on antimicrobial resistance and on potentially also in human bodies and in the environment in general. So the cocktail effect is something that's very much rising up the agenda. Thank you, my lords.